So, some subclasses in D&D are a little bit more sinister than others. And if you're looking to make a bard that isn't a smooth-talking bedder of dragons, or a more scoundrelesque leaning noble bright hero, then perhaps you should turn your attention to the College of Whispers. Hi there, I'm just a second level fighter who likes talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and if you've ever imagined a bard blasting careless whispers at all hours of the day, well, that isn't necessarily what this subclass does, although it could, but you should definitely hit the subscribe button or leave a like or comment on the video. But enough about that, because today we're covering a very different kind of bard. The College of Whispers was published in Xanathar's Guide to Everything way back in the early days of 5e. It is a somewhat infiltration and espionage-themed subclass with an air of mystique and veiled intentions. In truth, it is legitimately one of the more sinister subclasses in the game. The flavor here being that bards that subscribe to the College of Whispers generally do whatever is necessary to gain favor and power, often through coercion, rumor-mongering, and flagrant extortion, and that is somewhat reflected in the mechanical rules here. However, quite frankly, this is a weird subclass that may have been given a new lease on life thanks to the 2024 PHB. But we're going to give it a fair shake as we take a look at the odd features and how to apply them to an actual build. Of course, at the end of the video, I'll include my own quick interpretation of a level 1 to 20 Whispers bard, so stick around for that if you're interested. Starting off at level 3, we get two features. The first of which is Psychic Blades, and I'll say it, this is a really good feature. Once per turn, on our turn, when we hit a creature with a weapon attack, we can expend a use of our Bardic Inspiration to deal extra psychic damage. This starts out at 2d6 and scales up as we take levels in the class. So, 3d6 at level 5, 5d6 at level 10, and capping out at a not too shabby 8d6 at level 15. Now on the surface, this looks a lot like Rogue's Sneak Attack, with it dealing d6s and having some comparable scaling in damage. However, this is actually a lot closer to a Paladin's Smite spells, as we can choose to use it once we see whether or not we hit with our attack and whether or not that attack is a crit. It also has none of the requirements of Sneak Attack like Advantage, Nearby Allies, or Finesse weapons. So, I mentioned earlier that this subclass may have gotten a bit of a boost thanks to the 2024 PHB. Well, this is the feature that gets that boost. You see, when the Whispers Bard was first released, there was no way to use Charisma as our primary ability score for attacking with weapons outside of multiclassing into the Hexblade. Now though, thanks to the changes to True Strike and Shillelagh, and the fact that they are available to all characters at level 1 through our spell list and the Magic Initiate feat, well, the Whispers Bard has changed to a single ability score dependent subclass, meaning there is no more balancing Charisma and a weapon stat. Why is this important though? The number of uses we have for Bardic Inspiration is based off of our Charisma modifier, so the higher our Charisma, the more times we can actually use this feature. On top of that, our spellcasting is also stronger as a result. And yes, despite the fact that Psychic Blades unlocks a really awesome weapon-based playstyle, at the end of the day bards are still full spellcasters and we should be using our spells too. Words of Terror is our other third level feature, and it is a bit strange but very unique and kinda sets the tone for the rest of the features going forward. If we speak to a humanoid for at least 1 minute, we can use this feature to incite a deep sense of paranoia in that creature's mind. They must make a wisdom save or become frightened of us or another creature of our choice for 1 hour, or until they are attacked or damaged, or until they witness the same thing happening to their allies. Notably, if the target succeeds on the save, it has no awareness that this feature was being used. Additionally, Words of Terror can be used once per short or long rest. Now, this feature is incredibly unique for one very specific reason. There are very few other abilities in the game that allow a player to make a creature frightened of someone other than their own character. This is exceptionally rare. That being said, this feature is incredibly difficult to actually use effectively without some creativity. First off, we need to speak to a creature for an entire minute, so it can't be thrown out on a whim. Secondly, the moment some level of violence takes place, the frightened condition is just going to end. However, there is some role-playing gold as well as some crazy social encounter engineering that can take place thanks to this feature, but only when used in the perfect scenario. Want to cause some chaos with some NPCs? Well, this'll do the trick hands down. Moving on to level 6, we get Mantle of Whispers, which is another really odd feature. As a reaction, when a humanoid expires within 30 feet of us, we can snatch up their shadow and supposedly keep it in our pocket for later use. We can do so once per short rest, and all shadows we get a hold of only last until we finish a long rest, so keep that in mind. Now, what could a bard do with someone's shadow? Wear it as fashion, obviously. So, as an action, we can don one of our stolen shadows as a disguise for 1 hour or until we pull it off as a bonus action. While doing so, we look exactly like the former owner did in life, and we have access to their surface level memories, or enough information to realistically imitate them. We don't learn any spicy secrets though. This is also a one and done kind of deal, because once we use a shadow as a disguise, it disappears forever. Of course, this is a magical disguise, and other creatures can attempt to see through it by making a wisdom insight check contested by our own charisma deception check, which we get a massive +5 bonus to. So, this is basically the disguise self spell with extra steps and arguably much better results. Once again, though, it is a pretty complicated and difficult to apply feature. We have to be around at the time of death for the right creature to gain the benefits. But in the perfect circumstances, this feature will result in some really, really gross infiltration and, of course, identity theft. Finally, our capstone at 14th level is Shadow Lore. We can use an action to whisper a phrase to a creature within 30 feet of us. The target must then succeed on a wisdom save or become charmed for the next 8 hours, as it believes we know its deepest, darkest secret and fears that we'll sing that information to the rest of the world. However, if the target doesn't share a language with us or can't hear us, then this creature has no effect and is wasted. Additionally, the effect is broken if we or our allies damage the creature or force it to make saving throws, and we can use this feature once per long rest. Now, the charmed condition is cool and all, but this feature does go a step further. The charmed creature will obey almost any of our commands apart from anything that forces it to risk its life or fight for us, unless it was already inclined to do so. The creature will also grant us gifts and favors it would offer to a close friend. So yeah, this makes us BFFs with the target, at least under delusional hypothetical threat of blackmail. Once again, this is a very weird feature, but this time it is actually very broadly applicable. We can use Shadow Lore to essentially force important and powerful NPCs or sentient monsters, because it isn't limited to humanoids, to do whatever our sadistic little hearts desire, as long as it isn't life-threatening to them. So, do we want to get some juicy secrets or steal ownership of a mansion legally? Well, that's almost trivial with this feature. Now, having taken a look at the features, what exactly does this subclass do? Well, first of all, it has a really icky evil or even just a moral vibe about it. The theme is that it uses exploitation and extortion to get what it desires, and yeah, the mechanical rules kind of play into that. It's not like the Oathbreaker that feels like an arch-evil villain in the making. It's more insidious and an out-of-sight kind of evil. But if that's what a character concept is intended to be, this is a really flavorful subclass. Apart from that, the Whispers Bard allows for a very unique rogue or even paladin adjacent playstyle with full spellcasting. Psychic Blades is amazing, and while it doesn't allow this subclass to rival the Valor Bard in combat potential, it does allow for some very meaty big hits. I will say that this subclass can cause a lot of unforeseen bumps in the road for a DM, as it can cause conflict and chaos amongst NPCs with words of terror. And that's actually really cool, but it is something a DM does specifically need to watch out for. It's all fun and games until important NPCs start acting weirdly around their subordinates, causing a horrifying cascading effect if played out fully. But, as mentioned earlier, two of the features are a bit difficult to use, and Psychic Blades won't be as effective if True Strike or Shillelagh isn't taken. This subclass is a bit more complex than others because of how restrictive some of the features are, but they are genuinely terrifying when they work in the perfect scenario, which we can assume any good Whispers Bard would be trying to engineer. However, the College of Whispers Bard is still a bard at the end of the day, and that aspect really shouldn't be forgotten. Bardic inspiration can still be used to support allies, and the full range of spellcasting is also lying there waiting to be used in tandem with their unsettling features. I really like this subclass though. It opens up a new playstyle for my least favorite class, so that's pretty awesome. Alright, how do we go about building one of these delightful thingies? Well, as a bard, we are a spellcaster that uses charisma as our spellcasting ability. Bardic inspiration uses are also tied to our charisma, so the choice is obvious here. Pump up that charisma. We may also want to put in a bit of dexterity to ensure that we have a passable level of AC with light armor, but constitution may also be a concern if we're worried about concentration checks. Now, to take full advantage of what this subclass provides, we should find a way to reliably use Psychic Blades, as it is significantly stronger than the general fallback plan of Vicious Mockery or other alternatives for other bards. This is best done by finding a way to apply Charisma to our weapon attacks and damage through grabbing True Strike as a cantrip from our own spell list, but grabbing Shillelagh through the Magic Initiate Origin feat and the Druid spell list is also an option. I will just say that True Strike also has the benefit of working with ranged and thrown weapons, whereas Shillelagh does not. And as a baseline, bards are not superbly durable, so being a shooty coward has its upsides. I've mentioned it a few times now that the Whispers bard can be played like a rogue with spellcasting, but the comparison here goes a lot further than simply combat. Bards, like rogues, are skill specialists and can fulfill the same role, and arguably better in a few ways. So, a legitimate suggestion is to build and play this thing like a rogue, but with the added benefit of full spellcasting. The level of flexibility and variety this provides is insane, while still being able to chunk things in combat thanks to Psychic Blades. However, we shouldn't shy away from the fact that we are a bard and can do everything that goes along with that. Our bardic inspiration and spellcasting can very easily be used to focus on support when the situation calls for it. Here's a very brief list of spells from across the bard spell list that work very well with either the theme or the features of this subclass. These are by no means the only spells we should consider, but they do all work to set up a very disruptive infiltration and information gathering focused character. I won't go through them all in too much detail, but as mentioned, I see True Strike as an auto-include for a Whispers bard. Now, yes, we have a feature that fits in as an alternative to Disguise Self, but Mantle of Whispers isn't suited to every situation, so redundancy isn't necessarily a bad thing. Detect Thoughts is a great information gathering tool too. Invisibility, non-detection, and Project Image are all amazing for specific stealth or surveillance-oriented activities. But I will just point out that Project Image can be used in tandem with Words of Terror at range if the target doesn't realize that they're communicating with an illusion, which is pretty cool. Hypnotic Pattern is the go-to crowd control for bards, and rightly so, but Synaptic Static is a hard-hitting damage-oriented option later on with a pretty nasty debuff. Then Charm and Dominate Monster, Mass Suggestion, as well as Guess, or Gesh, choose however you want to pronounce it. Well, those spells sit right in the wheelhouse of the Whispers bard. They feel sinister and a bit icky to use, and that's just perfect. Finally, True Polymorph is just here because it's the best 9th level spell available to bards. At level 20, we get Power Word Heal and Kill 2 for free, so not too much to say about that choice. Magical Secrets is another big topic of discussion when it comes to bards and their post-level 10 spellcasting. I'm not going to give any useful guidance here, take whatever cleric, druid, or wizard spells are most appealing. But I will make one selfish suggestion, and that is the 2nd level spell Shadowblade, which falls in the wizard spell list. Now, this is a Xanathar spell, and if the 2024 rules and spells specifically are the only ones allowed at your table, then this is just going to be some useless information, so for that you are welcome. However, if you are mixing and matching older content with the 2024 rules, then take this spell the second your Whispers Bard hits level 10. How Shadowblade works is that it creates a blade of pure shadow in our hand that deals psychic damage. It is a simple weapon that has the finesse and thrown properties, and when used to attack a target that's in dim light or darkness, attack rolls are made with advantage. It deals a mighty 2d8 psychic damage, and this scales up slowly if upcast, maxing out at 5d8 with a 7th level or higher spell slot. This thing obviously fits the theme of the Whispers Bard tremendously. The only issue here is that it isn't specified whether a Shadow Blade has a monetary value, and this is important as True Strike requires the weapon used in the spell to have a value of at least 1 copper piece. Now, rules as written, I don't think these two spells interact at all. However, it wouldn't be a stretch to assume that something this powerful would have a monetary value to certain people. So, I don't often share my opinion on this, but if I had a player ask me if they could combine True Strike and Shadow Blade, I'd say yes and ask no further questions because it just fits the theme of the subclass so well, and it really isn't that broken. Now, when looking at feats, there is one that leaves all the others standing in its shadow when considering the Whisper's Bard. Shadow Touched gives access to invisibility and a first level illusion or necromancy spell. Wrathful Smite just so happens to be a first level necromancy spell, and it allows for some higher sneak attack or smite adjacent damage dealing. It also has a fear effect too. Sadly, it doesn't scale as well as the other smites, but there isn't anything else from our feat selection that can provide as big a boost to the Psychic Blade's playstyle. Actor is a serious consideration here, as it allows a Whisper's Bard to mimic the voice of their disguise, and gives advantage on checks to pass as that particular person, real or otherwise. As always, with a charisma or wisdom focused build, Inspiring Leader is a strong option, as is the case with Skill Expert. Bards are already pretty dominant when it comes to ability checks, so why not become even better? Then Defensive Duelist is a great way to boost survivability through reactive AC buffs. We'll probably use a finesse weapon, so it's just a solid fit. As for our choice of origin feat, Musician, Skilled, and Magic Initiate are all great options, whether it be to support the party, cover a wider array of skills, or just get access to more spells. I will also throw out that if Shadowblade is on the menu, then the value of Savage Attacker shoots through the roof. Rolling more dice with advantage results in a higher average damage gain. But beware, as this one means a lot less for the first 10 levels. Now, for species, as always, anything can work, but goblins, changelings, and kenku feel like amazing choices here. The goblin will give the closest experience to an actual rogue, as they can disengage and hide as a bonus action. And changelings and kenku feed into the stealing faces and infiltration idea through innate shape changing and mimicry. Now, when multiclassing is concerned, we need to decide at which point we want to drop our Psychic Blade scaling. But there are more than a few options that are really juicy. Warlocks and Paladins are both pretty obvious choices that provide a lot for a charisma-focused spellcaster. Warlocks can be built for both ranged and melee and offer a lot of interesting choices through their Eldritch invocations. Whereas Paladins almost exclusively focus on melee but do provide a lot through their spells and auras. If I were to choose a subclass for each to mix with the Whispers Bard, it'd be the Archfey Patron for the Warlock and the Oath of Conquest for the Paladin. Perhaps in this case it's a much more subtle form of conquest with a lot of power brokering and blackmail. My other suggestion is to combine the rogue-adjacent nature of the Whispers Bard with the real thing. If we jump off at just the right level with Bard, we can legitimately get full sneak attack damage, which is unheard of for any other rogue multiclasses. Now, obviously, features like expertise don't stack at all, but that's just a sad casualty here. I will say that the Soul Knife subclass fits extremely well thematically with our sadistic little bard here, and maybe the Phantom as well. However, while this does open up a few possibilities, overall choosing to multiclass Rogue will just dilute our spellcasting potential for slightly better sneak attack damage. So, the time has come to build us a College of Whispers Bard. We're going Goblin for the most faithful rogue-adjacent experience, and we'll name our character Rosie the Wolf. When asked why she's called that, she'll respond with some wholesome story about eating really quickly. But we all know the truth, deep down she's a bit of a psycho and just generally not the nicest person to be acquainted with. Anyway, using the standard array, Rosie will start off with a 15 in charisma, 14 in intelligence because she is definitely quite a bit above average in terms of brain function, and a 13 in dexterity. I will say that here I would probably make the controversial choice to leave her constitution at 10 and take a 12 in wisdom for better ability checks. She doesn't plan to get hit very often while concentrating because she is going to hide as much as possible. She'll take the charlatan background because once the layers are peeled back, it'll be very quickly revealed that her life as she presents it is a lie. But this will give her a +2 to charisma and a +1 to dexterity, as well as the skilled origin feat. While she may never tell the whole truth, she definitely appears to be practiced in a wide variety of skills. Speaking of which, it's essential she picks up the deception and stealth skills, one of which comes from her charlatan background. As for the rest, I'm thinking a mixture of perception, investigation, insight, history, persuasion, and performance might be a good starting point. Now, Rosie will obviously be trying her best to emulate a rogue, so True Strike will be her go-to in combat when devastating spells aren't on the menu. But with all the skill proficiencies, expertise, and bard stuff, She will absolutely make herself a valued member of any adventuring party, at least until it's revealed that she was more than likely using them all along to gain power and prestige. Along her journeys, though, Rosie is going to pick up a few feats. Starting off with Shadow Touched at level 4. She'll boost her Charisma here to 18 as well as pick up Wrathful Smite alongside Invisibility. At this point, she deals a very decent amount of damage in combat. At level 8, we'll cap out her Charisma score with an ability increase for good measure. At levels 12 and 16, we'll boost her Dexterity to 16 with Defensive Duelist for some great survivability for when she does get caught out, and Skill Expert for a little extra juice in the ability checks department. I thought about it for a bit, but at 19th level, I've decided to take the boon of Dimensional Travel on Rosie. This will just make her supremely slippery with a 30-foot teleport whenever she takes the magic action, which she will do almost every single turn in combat. Couple this with the fact that she will exclusively use daggers at range and take the hide action as a bonus action whenever possible. No pleb with a sword or axe will ever pin down Rosie the Wolf. So yeah, that's the build. It's a bit squishy and isn't great at concentration checks, but I like it as a spellcasting rogue, unrepentant liar, and general chaos gremlin. Alright, that was the College of Whispers Bard. Definitely an interesting subclass to say the least, but how do you feel about it? Anyway, if you've made it this far into the video, then you're a legend and I really do appreciate you. It has dawned on me that a player could use this subclass to just collect as many shadows as possible and not use them. But what other class or subclass features are just fun to use for random and completely pointless side quests? But yeah, that'll do it for this one. Cheers.